Hey guys, David Vose here. Oh boy, is it a beautiful morning here on Red Mesa. Really is just awesome today. Hope you're having a wonderful day. I had my phone and I was looking at the comments and so forth, and somewhere, I think it was a YouTube short or something that popped up, and they said if you eat cocoa, it will release stem cells and heal you of any and everything known to man. It will recreate everything in your body and make it new. I'm like, okay. We hear these claims, but we don't hear claims quite like that one. Like you might hear some vinegar or something helps your stomach, or apples are good for you, or hey, resveratrol will, it's like an anti-aging thing. That was a big one. There was like, really? Anti-aging? Let's go out and drink some red wine. Well, yeah, but it turns out that these kinds of anti-aging things are in all of the vegetables and most of the foods we don't like to eat. But it's a polyphenol. It's a phytochemical that you find in plant life. But we don't eat that. We've got to eat meat. We've got these fads now where people are just eating meat. Well, I'm not sure what's in meat. We do know the glutathione's in there, and that helps stop cancer and different things as well. But this one is different. This little tidbit I'm going to share with you could be completely a miracle for everyone out there because stem cells is something that the elite are trying to find a way to do. And maybe that's why they drink blood or whatever they're doing, or they're trying to find a way to stay young. And the doctors are trying to dissect and mix and potions and all, some way that we can just maybe inject the stem cells right into a certain location and regrow an ear or something. But it's all Frankenstein. It's all craziness. They haven't seemed to have done very well in their pursuit of eternal life, because we look at Billy the Gatekeeper was one of the richest men in the world. He's dying in front of our eyes. By the way, I just saw him um, protesting this ability for us to go on the internet and have knowledge, and they can't fact check us, and somebody might go on there and say something bad about Zach, scenes, and it's killing people. So we've got to stop people having this free speech. But look at George Soros, or he's dying, right? None of these people are going to live any longer. President Carter, you know, had cancer. Reagan died. Everybody dies, right? But do any of these individuals eat vegetables, right? Does any human eat that? Oh, yeah, I've got vegetarian friends. Hey, I was vegetarian for years and years and years, but I didn't eat any vegetables. What that means is they don't eat meat. Everything else is supposedly a vegetable, right? Or fruit. But other than fruiting or juicing, people don't really eat. And the fruits and juices that they use are these hybrid things that we have, like potato juice, or maybe I like beet juice. That may certainly have a lot of phytochemicals in it. And yeah, so there's some benefits to this kind of thing. But do you drink or eat the fiber with the, do you eat the beet? Not many people eat the beet. They just eat the juice. We kind of need the whole plant. But just let's let me just jump right into this and show you this. This is just blow your mind. So I looked it up to see if they were telling the truth, and I noticed. I think, well, okay, if they say cocoa releases stem cells, how many stem cells would it be worth drinking cocoa, like on a regular basis, every day? How much of it, and is it really going to work? And then I thought, well, the stuff that's in there that does it, what is it? And is it in other foods, right? So look at this. Yes, cocoa can release stem cells and has many other health benefits. Stem cell production, cocoa contains polyphenols. Oh, there's that little phenol, which everybody loves to talk about. But we're like, yeah, polyphenols, they're great, but you're not going to have eternal life eating an apple, right? Well, there's a particular kind of polyphenol that at this point they're going to tell us about. And if we learn about this one, I bet everybody runs out and starts doing it. And they'll do it for a week or two and then they'll go back to their, you know, soda pop. And because, hey, I drank chocolate milk with lots of cocoa powder in it for 2 weeks and I didn't see any benefits. So they're addicted to their cigarettes and whatever else they're doing. And they're not going to keep doing this. It's a lifestyle. You need life enhancing nutrients every day. So we're not going to get a good feel about how well this would work because if they're only telling us about this one polyphenol and the benefits, what about all the other little plants that we know that we just don't eat? I mean, like we got juniper berries all over here. In my area, what we have is pine nuts, junipers, and gooseberries, cactus fruits. Acorns are everywhere. People don't eat acorns. You say, well, they're kind of bitter, Dave. So are peanuts when they're raw. You have to roast them, put a little salt on them, right? I I used to watch my uncle and my dad eat raw acorns, just the way they were raw, maybe one or two of them, and they said they weren't too bad, but you probably they didn't taste that great. And I always thought, well, why not take them home and roast them in an open fire? Don't we have chestnuts roasting on an open fire? So are chestnuts good until you roast them? Well, I don't know, but the pine nuts also taste better roasted. Sometimes you have to cook your food. I mean, they're like beans. If you've eaten a red bean or a pinto bean, they're hard. I suppose you can pick them fresh and they're not hard. I don't know. I've never done that. But it seems like in order to make beans, you got to cook them and put a lot of salt because beans aren't really that good without salt. Of course, we've learned that Celtic sea salt is really good for you, so hey, there's no problem there. But we're going to learn about one little nutrient. And because we know about this, we can go out and try it. But what about all the amazing nutrients in nature? So all these things that I'm telling you about, the juniper berries and the pine nuts and even the gooseberries around here, taste a little turpentine-y. Like it's a little terpeny. And I find out that what makes it taste like turpentine is a thing called terpen. So that's exactly what it is. And it's like, well, people today, modern humans, think, oh, turpentine? Nobody likes that. Nobody wants to eat that. It's not spearmint, right? Tastes a little like licorice, actually, to be honest with you. Quite sweet, but it has this turpentine taste. And a lot of the vegetables and wild plants do kind of taste this way. You find out there's a whole flock of plants that have cannabinoids, and we have cannabinoid receptors, which is cannabis. There's a lot of plants that have opioids, and we have opioid receptors. We have all these different phytochemicals that not only could be healthy for you, but give you states of mind that make you happier. So who knows what would happen if we actually stopped living in society. Maybe that's all it means, get out of Babylon if you don't want to share with her in her sins. In Babylon, the land of traffic, what are we trafficking? Among other things, prostitution, men's souls, but also the spice trade. We got to make it very expensive to get these spices, and the government found that out a long time ago. The herbs. And they're like, well, they're all illegal now. Wild food is illegal. Well, Dave, it's only because it's wild mushrooms that are going to kill you and wild plants that are poison. So we have, cannabis has got to be illegal. But those are the very things that really have the amazing effects upon us. So they're outlawing and making it illegal to eat plants. But hey, it don't matter because at this point, people don't like plants. They don't like food. They'd rather go to the store and take their chemicals. Now, back to this cocoa. Your mind's going to be blown. And by the way, remember I told you just a few days ago that I was completely and absolutely healed by eating just sugar. I started eating some ho-hos. I hadn't had any sugar for years. I was literally dying. I didn't know why. My arm was shriveling up. I started eating some sugar. And voila, the first day I ate all this sugar, it was like my hand and arm just stopped hurting and I could open my hand. I knew that something was going on. And I still stand by that. It healed my arm 100%. And now I eat a little sugar every day. But, of course, I don't need to go out and eat ho-hos to get the sugar. So I eat raisins and cranberries and fruits and things and bananas. But one thing I was doing, at the same time I was eating some sugar for the last couple months or more, I was also getting a lot of sunshine because I built this neat little cabin with a porch. Not finished with the cabin, but I've got the porch up anyway. And I sit out here in the early mornings and I just soak in the sun. It just sunbathe. Now, I know that vitamin D activates so many things in our body that I'm watching my dogs lay out in the sun, with belly up, just soaking it in, even when it's like 80 degrees, and they must literally be hot to the touch. But they lay out there for hours, and it's got to be healthy for you. But one other thing I've been doing is I've been putting a big heaping teaspoon of cocoa powder in my coffee several times a day. Like, I drink 5 or 6 cups of coffee, and for couple of 2 or 3 of those cups, I've been putting cocoa. It just, because I don't eat sugar, and I noticed that I like the taste. I also put a little cinnamon with some of my coffee. So that's something I've been doing. And I've been feeling really good. But listen to this. Stem cell production. Cocoa contains polyphenols and magnesium. Oh, and that's another one, magnesium. I've been trying to get more of that because that helps you sleep. And you've got to get magnesium for things to go into your cell. Oh, by the way, I want to tell you about why things won't go into your cell without these certain things. Like, who was it? Barbara O'Neill was talking about, we've got to get the oxygen into the cell. And it takes glucose to do that. Okay, for somebody who doesn't know anything about reality, that's a great way to explain it. But we really... And nothing against her. It's just not known in society why we need oxygen inside the cell. Why would you? Well, oxygen's life, David. We've got to have oxygen. Wherever oxygen goes, it just gets rid of all the disease. But why? Does anybody know what's going on here? Well, glucose, sugar, can be fermented into a fuel. Oil is a fuel, right? Inside that little cell, and you have, I don't know, trillions and trillions, I guess, of them. They're all combustion engines. Remember she was talking about the carbon dioxide? You get 4 carbon dioxide molecules that when they're released, then your body can receive 4 oxygen molecules. Well, where do you normally hear that word carbon dioxide? It comes out your tailpipe, the back end of your car. And people will run that into their car and die because it'll kill you. But it's what happens in a combustion engine. You need air into the intake valve, and that allows the fire to burn. And when you burn the things in the fuel, it comes out as carbon dioxide. So you've got to release carbon dioxide because you're burning fuel. Maybe that's why you've got to release 4 carbon monoxide molecules Well, not carbon monoxide. That's different than carbon dioxide. Yes, the car produces carbon monoxide, which is poison. Carbon dioxide obviously wouldn't be poison because it's in your body, and it regulates the pH in your blood and different things. But it is the same thing basically, and the only difference is carbon dioxide is called CO2. The two because it has two oxygen molecules. But the carbon monoxide has one oxygen and one carbon. And so it's the same thing, but you're just getting more oxygen. So even because carbon dioxide is toxic in if you have too much of it. But because it doesn't have as much, it's got two oxygen and one carbon, it's used to change the pH in your blood and stuff like this. But it is kind of the same thing, and it's the same process. It's the product of burning fuel in your cells in order to latch on to four new oxygen cells because it's burning the oxygen, turning into carbon dioxide. I mean, really, it's elementary, my dear son. But we don't have a clue anyway because no one ever told us. But she was saying that you release four carbon dioxide molecules in order to latch on and receive four oxygen molecules. And without the oxygen, she says, you're done. So you've got to have this carbon. And this whole process is done with glucose. But I don't think she understands that glucose is gasoline, it's fuel. It's combustible. And the combustion needs oxygen. So you have a combustible engine. You've got to get air into the valve for the combustion to burn the fuel. Now, what is burning? What is burning? Fire, right? You got fire inside your cell? Yeah, a little spark, just like an engine. And that explodes or burns. And this is what life is: motion, activation, animation. Your spirit never dies. You're an immortal being, but your body's got to move. Why? What makes your arm move? What makes your head swivel? What makes your feet go one foot in front of the other? You've got to have some kind of engine. And every cell is a combustible engine. And this is why every mineral's got to be in your body and go into that cell. But it can't enter unless it falls behind the oxygen. All the oxygen is doing is making an entrance point because it's the highest of the elemental chain. An entry point for that electricity or that combustion or that fire to go from oxygen and, it starts up here at hydrogen and helium and oxygen and goes all the way down to uranium. So you need these trace minerals. But since we're on that point, I'll go back to what I was saying here, but I need to make this point. So we think of it as a chain of elements, the elemental chart, from hydrogen and helium and oxygen all the way down to uranium and lead and whatever, these heavy metals, plutonium, which is why the last two planets is Uranus. Well, it's not, it's Neptune, but out further we have Uranus and then Pluto. It's at the end because it's the heaviest. And then the soul or the salt or the solute, the halo, saliva or the minerals are lighter up at the top, which is the sun or the soul, which in Greek is Elios, which is El, which is the light. And that's actually higher than oxygen, light, right? It's so, how scientists were saying that light's different than sound. Well, light is also heat, and heat needs a medium, right? So, yeah, light and heat's the same thing, just different intensities or frequencies. But what I'm going to tell you is that we think of it in a chain of all these different minerals, from the light, airy oxygen all the way down to these hard metals. And it's a conduit for life, or for this electrical current, for the fire, for the combustion. I don't know, maybe it's like a spark plug, but I think it's more like a wire, a conduit for the energy to go through. But why does it start at one end and come to the other? You got two poles. Well, if you think of it not as a chain of 100 elemental things, but if we think in terms of it's a big round ball, almost like a little film or bubble. And you can imagine just kind of a little bubble that kind of floating. It's a little thin film that makes it a little sphere. Well, somewhere you can penetrate that little bubble and get inside of it. People have done that. They've stuck a little tube and blown bubbles inside the bubble. But the film has this like viscosity, or yeah, you could pop it with a pin, but if you do it properly, you can literally, something can go through the film and get in there. Why? Because it's not real hard like metal. You wouldn't be able to get through metal. So the surface would be like the lighter substances. But in order to get the energy all the way through that cell and out the bottom, then there's got to be at the bottom the heavier parts. And friends, think about this. This makes everything in the universe so simple. That's how we're conceiving it. But what are we really talking about? Why is the outer perimeter there, like a film? And then beyond that, there isn't anything. Well, that's how we perceive a thing. That thing and the idea of that thing has all these variables or variations or graduations, from the harder to the more subtle, illuminous, or airy. Well, we don't actually know if beyond the air, which is as far as we can perceive, well, no, we'll go to the light. Now, according to the Bible, the light is deity. Even according to science, it's they don't realize that this light is mind, illumination, and it is but beyond it, it has the will and, the whole pleroma. But they don't understand any of this and what the ancient esoteric wisdom is. But that is infinite, right? There's a Father above a Father, above a Father. So even above the light, they've even said that beyond photons, we might have other little smaller things. So, but we don't perceive them. But it doesn't matter. The infinite then to us is being perceived as just what we can perceive, like a spectrum. Beyond that spectrum, it goes much further. But in our spectrum, just like we have 7 colors in our rainbow, but in our elements, we only go up to helium and hydrogen. There must be more beyond that, of course. We'll just call all that is beyond that. We'll call it light. We'll call it mind, the creator. So we're looking at the whole universe. And every variable and idea that can be considered an idea has the variables from the higher to the lower, positive to negative, up and down. We cut anything in half, up and down or left and right, and then we go with the variables all the way down to texture and color and smell. But it's a thing. However, it blends in. Everything's touching. Everything's communicating. Everything's one. And so beyond the simple idea of what it is, beyond the light, is the oneness of the all that is maybe the ether, but it's more than that. It's the infinite layers to infinity. And the universe being the one and the invariable and the only and the true. And so we perceive it as various gradations because we broke it down in our mind from higher to lower, from heavier to lighter, to light to darkness, to good and to bad, and to whatever. We're breaking it all down, but it's all one. So when we see something as a line of elements, that's a way to understand, because we don't actually, with the human eye, we're not going to see all these little atoms and things. I mean, we don't think it's almost like it's just a way like we're naming variables, like we're giving higher a name of oxygen and hydrogen, and we're breaking the higher into layers and the middle into layers and the bottom into layers, but there is no bottom and there is no higher. So the universe then is relative in that sense. But we don't think of it that way when we're thinking of a sphere, because the bottom is really the inside, right? Inside the Earth's core, they claim is nickel and metals and uranium, and it's blowing up, and it's this hard substance, heavy. It's heavier. Mass does it. Well, they've got all this mathematics and philosophies as to why all this works. I say it's just a natural process, and we're looking at things as a sphere. So the solar system, we think of it as a big round vortice. At the top of the vortice is the sun, and then the planets follow, and they're all going in this vortice. But we understand it that way as planets, like rings, but instead the rings are all bottled up into one planet and they're spinning. Well, if a planet is going around at great speeds, the sun, or if the sun's going around the Earth and the planet's going around the Earth, either way, I'm geocentric. Well, okay. Yeah, the sun's in that direction and the heavier planets are in the other direction. So we're in between Venus and Mars, yes. That makes us in the middle, okay? So we're the center, because all there is in the universe out from the center, or the conscious mind, or the physical, is the more material going down that way for infinity, and the more ethereal going up that way. And the sun represents the highest that we can perceive in that airy part of our being. And the Pluto represents the harder, heavier, more material part of our perception. But we are in the middle. But when it's going around, if you were to slow down and take little snapshots, because that's what we are, like a little camera. Click, 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 click. We're not seeing it continuously. If you saw it continuously, it may just be a ring. The whole circle of the solar system may just be one big round ball, from the within to the without. But because we're getting little snapshots, we're in a sensory perception world, we're seeing it as round balls. So maybe if we're just seeing it that way, it's not really that way. Perhaps it really is 7 planes, these planets. Just something to think about. I think it is, and I think it is kind of relative, depending on if we're not seeing it through in reality, but we're seeing it through a medium. So back to what we're saying. We'll go into that some other time, though. That's a very unique and interesting door to go through, because it might explain a lot. So this is why certain things like magnesium, they say, oh, you got to have that to bring the other minerals in. Well, it's like having a short circuit. If you've got a wire going from the battery to the lamp, it's on. But if you cut the wire, it's off. So if there's one mineral missing, now some minerals aren't as necessary as others, but because, there are ways to get an arc from one mineral to another without the one in the middle. Maybe you can arc it over there, but it's a loss of energy. It's not a smooth transfer or conduit. So you need all the minerals for a nice, clean conduit. If you're getting sparks, and like your engine, if your spark plug starts fouling, then you're going to run poor, and it might foul the valves and start building up carbon deposits. It can't freely cleanse itself and go through the whole process. This is really what's going on. You've got to have oxygen, but you've got to have all the minerals. But mostly up there at the high level, like oxygen, you need a lot, right? Salt is a Sol, or the sun. It's way up there, almost up in the gaseous realm. So it's something that pulls all the other minerals with it. And you get hard water out of your water system by putting salt in there. Well, there's all these minerals, and if you put sea salt in there, it's really going to work because you got the whole chain, and it'll just bring that energy right on through and cleanse the entire thing. So I just wanted to point that out, that if you ate plant life, you have all these potassium and all this magnesium and all this stuff that we need. Who'd thunk of it, right? You got to eat plants. I haven't talked about meat at all. Like, there's no necessary thing that we're talking about other than the protein. But most people don't realize you can get a balanced protein or cholesterol from eggs and many other things. And I don't think that the Lord didn't make all these oceans and seas and rivers with all this teeming fish life, and we weren't supposed to eat them. Plenty of protein and cholesterol there. Well, the fish weren't made on the same day as the mammals. Neither were the birds, which is why the Nazarite priest, like Jesus, could eat fish, as Jesus did, and birds, as Paul did when he became a Nazarite priest in the Bible, in the book of Acts. But they were not allowed to eat meat. The stories say that James and Peter and the apostles probably ate nuts and berries and things. And we know that John, the Baptist, came neither eating or drinking. And we don't know what that means. It means he didn't eat bad things, but he ate only the herbs and the plant life. Now, back to what we were saying. A study, so it releases stem cells. A study at California State Polytechnic University found that cocoa extract rich in epicatechin, that's a polyphenol, increased capillary density in mice by stimulating stem cell production. Blood vessel health. Cocoa can improve blood vessel health. A study at the University of California, San Francisco, found that participants who drank a high flavanol cocoa beverage had twice as many stem cells in their circulation. Do you know what that could do for you? As you get older, and I think this is a scientific thing, I think this is something they say. As you get older, you start losing stem cell circulation. When you're very young, like a child, you've got all these stem cells circulating. You fall down, it's healed, right? You repair your hole in the heart or your brain activity. Everything's, if you're a little kid and they say when you were born, oh, something's really wrong. Well, a few weeks later, you don't give that kid pharmaceuticals, but you just feed him right. And voila, they say he just healed and his heart repaired. And why don't they tell us that this can happen? Well, yeah, with children, Dave, but not with older people. Why? Because they don't have enough stem cells. And so the doctors and the elite are trying to find how they can get some of these stem cells. Maybe we got to, kill somebody and be a vampire. Well, it turns out that you can have twice as many with a high flavanol cocoa beverage. And if you're older and you just got below a certain level and you don't have any stem cells, and now you're starting to age, and everybody's telling you, oh, well, maybe you need to go on this diet, or maybe you need this pharmaceutical, or maybe you should get more exercise. Well, your body's not producing muscle mass, no matter what you're doing. And you're deteriorating, and you've got some disease that they told you is incurable, and nobody knows how to fix it. So, cancer, whatever, what are you going to do? Well, why is it children normally don't have all these problems? You think of cancer and arthritis and Alzheimer's and stuff like this is for old people. Why? Because the young people have stem cells. So if you could double it just by drinking cocoa every day, why wouldn't you do that? And if you could do that, I wonder what would happen if you ate some of those juniper berries every day, which I do. I eat so far I've just eaten 20 of them. If you eat too many of them, it might give you an upset stomach. Maybe that's because we're not used to it. But I eat the gooseberries and the pine nuts and things that I see as much as I can. I've always had the practice of when I go outside and I'm on a walk, I'll eat a leaf or whatever's around me. The nuts I find, maybe, I don't know if it's poison or not. I just eat one. I found that almost nothing in the world's poison unless you eat it in large amounts. But the supposed chemicals in plants that they claim are poison are usually supposed to be eaten in moderation. They give you a certain euphoria or health benefits that people don't know because they say, oh, it's poison. But anyway, it says gut health. Cocoa contains fiber that feeds healthy gut bacteria, which can improve glucose and lipid metabolism. All right, so there might fix your diabetes. Inflammation. Cocoa can reduce inflammation. Well, inflammation is basically all the problems that we have. Well, autoimmune deficiency, AIDS, AID. They invented it, and it's giving us inflammation. Well, this may fix it when you eat actual food, right, instead of the chemicals. Diabetes, well, no, it says blood sugar control. Cocoa can aid in blood sugar control. Wow. Blood sugar control. So maybe all that sugar I was eating was being offset if it has bad effects on you. But I was also, just by accident, the universe said, hey, Dave, put some cocoa in your coffee. And I started doing it at the same time. I've been drinking a lot of cocoa. And I love it. It's just like, I like coffee with cocoa in it now, better than just regular coffee. But after seeing this, I think I'm going to do it more. Diabetes risk. Cocoa can reduce the risk of diabetes. And by the way, if it's reducing it right away, long term may cure it, because the more stem cells you get, the more you're going to repair things that aren't working right. You got to have stem cells to rebuild your body. Vasodilation. Cocoa is a vasodilator, which means it can widen blood cells by relaxing the muscular walls of blood vessels. So it says dark chocolate that contains 70 to 80% cocoa, and forget the candy bars, just get you some pure organic dark chocolate powder, cocoa powder, and put it in your milk or your coffee or something. Is rich in polyphenols and magnesium. Oh, there's your magnesium. So maybe it'll help you sleep and give you energy. They also concluded that ingesting your daily ration of cocoa through 2 cups of dark hot chocolate can double the number of stem cells in your bloodstream at any time. So I was thinking, if cocoa has it in there, what other foods have this in there? Maybe it's not just cocoa. Maybe it's all the plants that we should be eating, and probably have a lot of other things other than this flavonoid that we're talking about. So it says epicatechin, EGCG, is one of the most abundant flavonoids. It's one of the most abundant, being present in blackberries, apples, broad beans, cherries, grapes, pears, raspberries, cocoa, and tea leaves. I guess black or green. Well, we need to look into this a little bit more. Why are they talking about cocoa then if all these other things have it? Well, turns out cocoa has it like 10 or 20 times higher than any of these other things. So yes, cocoa is a great way to get this particular thing. But we've got to eat all these other things, and I'm sure in apples and broad beans have a lot of it in there, but I've never eaten broad beans before. So I looked it up, and actual beans have it too, but just not as much as broad beans. So it keeps telling you about the apples, the blackberries, the broad beans, the cherries, black grape, pears, raspberries, and chocolate. So I thought, let's take a look at these broad beans and see what they are. Broad beans, well, they look like peas. A faba bean, field bean, bell bean, English bean, horse bean, Windsor bean, pigeon bean, and a tick bean are all different names for the Vicia faba, a flowering plant and species belonging to the vetch and pea family. Well, yes, peas have it in there too, but not quite as much. So there's, I've seen them before, I think. Well, they kind of look like beans, don't they? Almost like lima beans there, but all right. So I thought, how many different kinds of things other than these ones they're telling us about. Let's get a list and see the actual amount of this flavonoid that's in the food and how many foods have it. Well, the first thing is alcoholic beverages, and beer has it in there. Huh, holy moly molies. We could drink beer. It says beer with alcohol free has 5.56 per 100 milligrams. Now, that's quite a bit. You'll see that a lot of other things don't have that much. Regular beer ale has 0.05, which is a big drop. I guess it's got alcohol. Beer dark has 1. Regular beer has 0.06. So that's negligible. Ciders, 0.03. Whatever. Wines, sherry, 1.25. Grape wines, 3.78. Now we're getting somewhere. Rosé, 0.55. Wine that's white, 0.95. Champagne, 0.09. Well, that's not too much. Okay, here we go. Cocoa, 70.36. What is that? 70 times more or 150 times more than these other things that we're looking at so far. Cocoa powder, well, chocolate milk has 14.58. Probably because they're using the wrong kind of chocolate. Otherwise, I wouldn't know why it would be less. Because cocoa powder is 158.30. All right, so 70 was great. We were like somewhere between 70 to 150, 200 times more than these other things. But the cocoa powder is like 150 to 300 or 400 times the amount in these other things. That's why it's so great for you. What else? Fruits and berries. Blackberries raw, 11.48. Blackcurrant, 0.47. So looking at all these berries, some of them are pretty good. 4.20, 5.24 is a black grape. 5 is a red raspberry. Strawberries raw, 7.50. I mean, this is noticeable. This is good. You're getting this flavonoid in a lot of fruits and stuff. Apricots, 3.47. Nectarines. Peaches have almost 8. Sweet cherries raw, almost 8. Fig peeled, not too much. But apple cider peeled, so apple cider made with peeled apples is 28.67. That's quite high. That's almost half as high as the cocoa. Apple cider. Apple dessert peeled, 7. Apple raw whole, 8.37. Medlar, I don't know what that is. A pear, 1.43. A whole pear with the skin is 3.77. Custard apple, 5.63. So then we get down to chocolate milk beverage, 5.58. I don't know what kind of cocoa they're putting in their chocolate milk that it drops it down to 5 when cocoa powder is 158. So I'm not sure about that, but I guess there's different kind of cocoa powder, you know. But so fruit juices, berry juices, grape, buckthorn berry, they have it in there. Apple cider pure, you know. Apple juice has quite a bit. Okay, black tea, almost 4. Green tea, 8. Vinegar, 0.55. Almonds, 0.59. So the nuts have a little in there. And the pulses, like the broad bean, has the 22. So the cocoa is like 4 or 5 times higher than the broad beans. And then we've got down here, the pod vegetables, broad bean, green beans, fresh peas. They all have it in there, but mostly the pod vegetables. So I thought that was pretty interesting. That gives you an idea that vegetables themselves are very healthy for you, and we don't realize how healthy because we only eat them a few times and think, that didn't do any good. But if you kept getting more and more stem cells and less inflammation, and all these good things and anti-aging like resveratrol, you might actually stop aging. So I asked the question to the old Goggle brothers, do all pod beans have it? And it says, no, not all pod beans have epicatogen, but broad bean pods do. Other foods, green and black tea, berries, most fruits. So I don't know. I think that's all pretty interesting. It's probably one of the most interesting subjects for somebody who's really looking for some real truth and trying to make some real change. Of course, it's one thing to know, and it's required that you know in order to get there. But the next step is to do, and sometimes it boils down to just doing something and getting yourself going, getting yourself started. It may just be little things, but those little things become habits and we start doing bigger and better things. But we really need to train ourselves to not be addicted to the poisons as well as the nonsense in this world, and the need to be beaten and work like a dog and have all this anxiety and walling around in our pain and, oh, I'm sick. It's like we just enjoy being sick. Look at me, I'm sick, you know. I think inside within us, we all know we're just fine. And we're really happy just being alive, but we're pursuing some sort of feeling and addiction just to see how far we can, maybe we get sympathy. I don't know. We get off kilter. We get in a delusion and we begin to see monsters and we get scared, and it's difficult, friends. We've got to wake up now. So we need to know more. We need to understand it better, but we need to start doing it, and we need to start doing it together. We need each other. We can encourage one another. It takes people to find this information out, get it out there, and others to just absorb it and to share it and to learn it so they can start teaching as well. And everybody's got to be a teacher. We need to teach our children, our families. We need to stand for what is right, to know what is right, and not be deceived. I'm going to leave it there, guys. I hope you all having a wonderful evening. And if not, after hearing this good news, you really need to be having a good day, because you got all the tools at your disposal. And we're going to bring this together. And we got each other if you want, but we've got to embrace each other. We've got to come together, and not forsake the gathering of ourselves one to another, even as you see the day drawing near. More importantly then, and that's today, friends, we need to draw together, to have this world in common, to share it, to love one another, which means share. We got to live that way. We can't just say, it's a good principle when you want to. It's got to be that everything here is for everyone, and we feel better and do better together. Gonna go ahead and go and get this thing loaded. I got a lot of work today as well, too. I've been getting some things done, and I've got to get on the tractor, and I got a few things, and I'm making a septic over at the other trailer now. And anyway, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and everything will be great. The Lord will bless you. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.